Hi, I'm Karin Lubin, and I'm your well-being coach. I'm an author, I am a speaker, and I am really excited to be sharing on Conversations with Pearl.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, this is Pearl, and you are listening to another Conversations with Pearl. And today we're actually coming from one of my really dear friends' home. So my background's a little different. Julie DeLuca Collins, who's my business coach, she is letting us use her space to interview our amazing guest that we have today. And our guest today is Karin Lubin. She is a well-being coach, trainer, and exercise enthusiast, driven by a desire to inspire and energize people and teams through the power of love, self-reflection, inner and outer strength, clarity, and become unstoppable in what matters. Don't we all want to be unstoppable? It's so amazing. So she uses passion, reflective journaling, which you guys know I love journaling, and self-connection as the fundamental basis for inner mastery to catapult people into a life full of deep meaning, connected to soul and purpose. And you guys know I'm all about having that purpose in your life. And Karin collaborates with transformational leaders to create wisdom journals that support people in transition and recovery to greater clarity, self-esteem, and emotional resilience. She uses her seasonal wisdom journals in her quantum wisdom coaching and quantum leap coaching, as well as her consulting practices. And I am excited to have Karin on today. And I have to share a little secret. I shared Karin with my Shiro League group that we meet every Sunday evening. And one of my girls, Jacqueline, I'm going to call her out, was already jumping on, and she was saying, Karin, how much it felt good. And I can't remember what you guys worked on, but she felt it the next day for like just a short 10 minutes. So welcome to the show, and I'm excited to have you today.
Thank you, and it's really nice, Pearl, to be here. And I'm so glad that you have a Shiro group. I think that what a beautiful, beautiful thing to honor one another in everyone's, unique journey. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I really believe, women, we get so busy and we do so much for each other and everybody else, and we forget to do something for ourselves, right? We really are that hero for everybody. And my listeners know that, even my moms who work from home, because I call it, there's not the word stay-at-home mom. I threw that out the window. I call it the CEO mom, because
right.
what mom stays at home and does nothing, right? Like
Exactly.
she's busy, so she's running a household. And I just feel like we need to create that safe space for women to come together. So listeners that are listening, if you want to join us, just you can message me or go to Shiro League on our website, wsliving.com, and you can find it. But really, we hang out. We just sit back and we just talk about, like right now, we're working on finding joy in our life. So we just work on things around self-care, self-reflection. Everything you were sharing that I just shared in your bio is a lot of what we work on. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and, what brought you on the journey you're on today to pay it forward to everybody with what you're doing.
So when I was in my first career, let's put it that way, I was a public school teacher. I taught kindergarten through 8th grade. I did them all. I then found myself wanting to be of service to the teachers and to the kids in a different way. I became an administrator, public school administrator. Did that for about 10 years. By 20 years, I have to say, Pearl, I really burned out. So you all might have heard of burnout. That was me. So if you can I know we've all met people who have been kind of like a walking zombie, not quite here, kind of here, but not really connected. That was me, totally disconnected from my heart, from my head. And I realized that I just needed to take like a break. and stop and fill myself up. And I had this huge bucket list of things that I wanted to do. I hadn't done any of them. I mean, it was just like I put everything else before me. So I think, your Shiro journey, the whole concept of getting together to celebrate and be with one another, so important. So that's what I did by myself. So I actually took a year. I finally gave myself permission to release myself as an administrator, because what I saw was all the administrators before me in this one position that I had, they were all having health crises. I mean, they were, like cancer and very debilitating things going on. So I knew that if I stayed, that would be me in 5 years. So I realized that was my wake-up call. I stopped, and then I took off for a year. And it was really a super big blessing that I was able to do this. And I traveled all over the world, Pearl. My husband, he said, okay, I'll stay at home. You go off. And it was pretty impressive. I went to Mexico. I studied Spanish. These are all the things that were on my bucket list. I went to India, and I studied with spiritual masters for months and months and months. I went to Belize and learned how to sail. And I went and did all these classes and took all these trainings to help me connect my head to my heart. And that was actually a really big thing. And once I came back, one of the things on my bucket list was to become a coach, a life coach with my husband. And so we started our Quantum Leap coaching and consulting business. And at that time, I wanted a tool that would really help us get super clear quickly with people. I didn't want to hear a story and I didn't want people to waste their time. So I learned and read this book called The Passion Test by Janet and Chris Atwood. I loved the tool. I couldn't quite get it myself, like figure out what my passions were. I kind of could, but it was a little bit hard. So I heard that Janet Atwood was going to do this presentation in this 5-day event that I was invited to. I was super excited. I went with my husband. I went with my niece, who happened to be 9 years old, which is kind of crazy. But it ended up that Janet Bray Atwood was there. She took us through the passion test process, which is getting clear about what's the 5 most important things in your life. And I loved it. I just found myself going, okay, this now becomes my decision-making tool. These 5 things that I say are most important now become my decision-making tool. And Janet met my niece, Morgan, and she said, oh my gosh, we have to start the passion test for kids and teens. Now, knowing that I've been in education for 20 years, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is a tool that I can get behind for kids all the way up to the end when you move on, right, out of your body. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So when she asked, how many of you want to, support families living their passions? I was like, yes, absolutely. Well, she was like, okay, go to the back of the room. I had no idea what the heck this was all about, but I went to the back of the room because it was such a clear yes for me. And I was asked to then sign up to become a passion test facilitator. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I have no idea how I'm going to do this because the money, blah, blah, blah. But I just was like, I looked at my passions and I definitely knew this is something that would support my passion. So I just said yes. And it was really quite amazing, Pearl. What ended up happening is a month later, I took the course, the 4-day course, and then there was an invitation to be a director of the passion test programs. And, I had been this administrator and I was looking at my passions, and luckily I had my passion. So I could see that a lot of the things I had on my list actually were part of this director role. So I applied and I became then the global passion test director for Janet and Chris Atwood and the passion test programs. And I did that for 13 years while also being a coach. And now I've released myself from this position. So I'm in this beautiful transition of now being, what I'm calling is your well-being coach, because I believe I'm all about well-being on all levels, body, mind, and spirit. And all of the things you just mentioned about the journaling, about the exercise class, all of these things and more, I could go on, are things that I became a master trainer for the passion test. So I love that tool. And that is the tool that has helped me to actually transition into what is now being as a well-being coach, because I realized what I was passionate about wasn't about being in the back of the room, so to speak, or doing the paper shuffling as much in the director role. It was about really facilitating transformation. And I was doing that as a master trainer. And I realized I didn't need and want to do the same thing as I'd done before. I needed a shift. So that's my shift.
I love, okay, let me just back up. I love that you took that leap and said, I have this bucket list, I have these things, and I'm burnt out. And if I don't do this, who knows where my life is going to go? I don't, you saw the people, like you said before you, going, they're sick, cancer, all these things. And you're like, you knew that wasn't your journey. And you said, right. I need to do something. And then you went and you said, I'm going to take that leap of faith. I'm going to do it. I think that's so powerful, because so many of us sit back and we don't say, I have this list and I want to do it. And, some of you have been listening, the past few weeks to the episodes, know that I lost my son. And one of the things that has been really powerful and has brought a lot of, I started a movement called #MakeTheCallForMatt, was that he had two friends come to our door and didn't know that he had passed, and were coming to say hi, or, they had a disagreement. And, so walking through that, and I sat there and I thought, our young generation is not understanding that we have to take time to, one, build ourselves up, do things we love to do, but also make those times for those that we love in our life, and make those connections. And I love that not only did you say, I have this list I want to do, but you then went to your husband and said, this is what I want to do. And how powerful is that, to have a relationship that your spouse says, go, I'll hang back here, I'll take care of the house, and you just go do those things. And my husband is a lot like your husband. I've been married 35 years, and he's just like I'm up here at Julie's house, like, just go. He knows I'm going to Syracuse to get this award, just go. And just, he knows that this is what I love to do. He's not somebody who likes to go travel and all that stuff, so he loves to just send me away and do what I love to do.
That's good.
But I think it's important to the listeners that are listening to understand that, first of all, we're not promised tomorrow. So you're not promised the next 5 seconds. So if there's something you've been wanting to do, like you're saying, Karin, is that we have to do it. We have to make that time to do it. And if you can't do, somebody may be listening going, well, I can't quit my job and just go do that. Well, that's fine. We understand that. And you need to look at that list and say, I want to go to the beach for a week, right? It could be as simple as that. Okay, put on your schedule, go, and if you can't take a week off, maybe you go for 2 days, or go for a day and watch the sunset, whatever that is. Like, look at that list that you're going to pour into yourself, because like we said earlier, people get so busy. Our CEO moms, they're so busy running the household, getting the kids to soccer practice. Or if you're working and you're a CEO mom, I mean, you're doing 2 jobs, right? It's just overwhelming. And even if you're not a mom and you're listening to this, and you're that professional, that entrepreneur that is pouring into their job or their business, you have to stop and go, how am I pouring into myself, right? Because we become people pleasers. That's a habit. Especially women, we want to take care of everybody and do everything for everybody, right? So we have to take that step back. And I love you share about the journaling, and I love that you went on this adventure, and then for the passion, and then your niece comes, who's 9 years old. Hello, I mean,
really,
talk about, we need to change the generational thing of, we have to be on these things all day long, and we're down looking at this. And our young adults are on this path of, like, they don't know what the world is out there. They don't even know how to write cursively. I mean, come on, it's just crazy. They took cursive away. It's like, how do you not know? How do you do those things? Like you said, Karin, we have to make those times to do those things that are our bucket list, because we have to pour into ourselves too. And because we don't pour in our cup, we can't pour into others. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is we're talking about self-love, self-worth, self-respect. And I do believe that one must give permission to oneself so that you can actually be available to everyone else. I mean, it's that concept of put the oxygen on yourself first when you're in the plane. If you don't do that, how are you going to even help somebody else? So that is really important, is you got to fill, that's my journey. That's my lesson, is to keep listening every day. Because Pearl, I don't know about you, but every day it could be a little bit different. Like I might need something different. Like today, I wanted to really be on this call. I was like, yes, this feels so good. Another day might be going to the land that I have, and that's a dream that I've actually helped create for myself, which is another one of those things when you take those leaps and you give yourself permission, and it could be small things. It could be, I'm going to take 15 minutes and go, sit outside and read, or take a walk and be out in nature. I'm a firm believer that nature gives us a sense of being small enough that we can feel the grandiosity of everything around us, and remember how there, even if we don't believe in spirit, whatever, nature is bigger than us. So wherever one is in their faith and in their whatever practice they have, nature can be such a fabulous metaphor for allowing us to kind of go, wow, and feel that awe, that gratitude. Yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree with you, because like I love being like when we moved to Florida, because I live in Tampa, Florida. We moved to Florida. I told my kids, okay, listen, we would go to the beach before they got older and could drive themselves. I'm like, we're going to the beach. I'm not leaving till like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And that's because I want to see the sunset. So half the time they wouldn't come with me, like, we don't want to stay at the beach all day. I'm like, you don't understand how beautiful it is out here. Like, you let the salt air just pour into you, and hiking. There were Boy Scouts going hiking there. Like our kids are so into being inside. And like you said, grounding, get your feet on the ground, and just to feel that what nature has to offer us is so powerful and so refreshing. That's why I do our pajama retreats once a year. We either go to the beach or we go to the mountains, right? And so we're in our PJs the whole weekend, and we have no makeup on, because I feel like sometimes we hide behind this mask of who we aren't, because we're not doing those things we want to do. So let me cover up so I feel better. And when we start taking that mask off, we can really dig deep and pull in. It's like, what is that inner soul, or what's that inner person wanting? And, I love the journaling and things like that. So tell us about the coaching you do, and what's your approach with the coaching when you're working with somebody?
So I'm always looking at what are people's passions, what is the things that are important to them. That's like really pretty foundational. So looking at values and looking at the things that are important. Another piece is actually the self-love and that journey of giving oneself permission to create really healthy boundaries for oneself. Okay, because you're talking like the superwoman CEO, and there's, we got to not do the superwoman thing, because it's really exhausting. What we have to do is be more authentic and real. So the self-love or self-respect, self-worth piece is very, very important. And then the last is I do a lot around emotional resiliency. And so what that is with the journal in particular, I'm using nature really as a great metaphor. And that is like, we're coming from summer, we're moving now next month into fall. And there is this shift that happens in the weather, and then there's this harvesting, and we're collecting things, and that's what's actually potentially happening within us. Potentially, okay? Like we're cleaning things out. We've been cleaning things out. We're bringing things in. We're painting. We're doing all these things, right? And there's this whole concept of balance that we come to because of the equinox. That's equal day and equal night. And so there's this this invitation from the outwardly, from nature itself, to find a different kind of balance. Because I know for summer, I don't know about you, Pearl, but I've been out and about a lot, or more than I have, let's say past, the COVID thing. We have, at least me, I'm being with a lot of people, and it feels actually a little out of balance. I'm like, whoa. So I'm now recognizing, all right, so what is balance for me now as I move into this fall season? So that's the kind of thing that I'm always looking at. The emotional resiliency piece is also, where are you with your feelings? So we have a thought, then we have a feeling, and then there's a sensation in our body. And I am one of those people, if you had talked to me 30 years ago, I would not have had a clue what the heck I'm talking about. So this has been my own journey, but I work with a lot of people who, when you say, so how are you doing? They're like, good. And you're like, really? Okay, what does good mean? Like, what's the feeling? Okay. So then it's like, well, happy or peaceful, calm, or excited, or it could be angry, or it could be I feel contracted. So I have this whole list of words, feeling words, in the journal, because the people that I was working with at the time, about 6 years ago, there was no concept of how one felt, and I could not find for the life of me anywhere a journal with feeling words. So here's my journal. This is one of them, one for every season. And it's for busy people and deep thinkers. Haha. Right. And then there's a list of all these words. Okay. And it goes on and on and on, because, we need to start to check in with ourselves, because when you know how you feel, then the next piece is, okay, so like, what was the situation that might have gotten that feeling to come up, or the thought, and then what do you want to do about it? Because that's where we can take action and feel better about, like, oh, this is what I need. I see. I was feeling contracted because I would really like to have this conversation. I'll make it up with my husband, and I've not been saying anything to him, and now I know I'm going to ask to have a conversation, and like a sweet little like time to be together. Okay. I feel so much better having said that, right? So that's the concept. And then the journaling is all around gratitude. So there's a left and a right brain thing I'm always doing about integration. So those three things that I've just talked about, which is I've kind of gone on and on, but emotional resiliency, self-love, and passions, and your priorities and values. Those are the three things that I really look at, because that then makes a whole person. And I'm all about the integration and embodiment of these things that we're thinking, feeling, and then being.
Yeah, and the thing, like you're saying too, that emotional intelligent piece, that's that emotion, like you said, getting out and sharing it and saying it and putting the words, like how you feeling today? It's like, oh, I feel fine, So one of the things that we made sure we did when like all our family was coming, when in the passing of our son, we had tons of family coming in, and we made it very clear, even between we started with my husband and I, then we added my younger son, and then as a family came, we added them, and we said, listen, we don't want you to hide your emotions, because we're all going to feel these emotions. And for me, I don't want anybody to hide those emotions. I'm like, you might see me walk around, see me cry. If you guys cry, don't not cry because you're afraid you're going to upset me. Because really, I need that. I need to know how you're feeling. I need to help you. I may be able to help you walk through the feelings, and you help me walk through the feeling as it comes up, And so it was really powerful. And like my mom, she went home and she's like, they had the thumb drive, but we did this video. And she goes, can you send me the video? I said, yeah, you didn't get to see it? She's like, no, and I really want to watch it by myself. I'm like, okay, so she wanted to do her feelings on her own. I'm like, well, as you do it, if you have to talk to somebody, it's good to do that, right? Because the other part of that too is if we keep our feelings in, then we all know what happens, right? Then it's like a hot water that's boiling. It's just going to get hot and explode, right? And so we have to, I love that you shared, and have that journal that gives us the prompts, because sometimes we have the feeling, we're like, oh, I think it's this, but then once you see the word, you go, no, this is really how I feel. I love that your journal does that, because then you really start digging deep, that maybe it was shame, but it really wasn't shame. Maybe it was more embarrassment, so it could be, having that, I think, is really powerful. And then I think, like you said, self-love, I was talking to somebody today, it's going to be on an episode in a few weeks, and she made the point, she shared with me, and I was like, that's a great way of sharing that, is that we're with ourselves 24/7. We're with ourselves in the moment, Emily was her name. Emily shared that, from the minute we are born to when we pass, we're with ourselves the most. So why are we not doing something to love ourselves? It's so important. And I just love that you walk through that. So we've talked a lot about, identifying, and dealing with the emotions and such. So what are some of the fun things that you do, Karin, for yourself, if you've gone through this? Like, what do you do? And I know, because I know you, and we're on this amazing KSM app, and we're doing this 7 Beautiful Day thing, which for those that are listening to us, if you go to my social media, you'll see the app. But basically, it's every day for 7 days. So it's every day of the week. If you just want like 10 minutes of inspiration, Karin and I are both one of each that are on that app, and you can go listen. Either you can go do a workout with Karin, or you can come listen to me about overcoming people pleasing, or we talk about becoming a shiro. We have somebody talks about parenting, like all kinds of things you can think of, self-confidence. We even have people doing meditations on there. So there's the whole thing I want you as listeners to listen to is, even if you feel like you can't find it, there's something somewhere. So even if you feel like I can't go talk to somebody, or maybe you feel like you don't have the funds, or you feel like a lot of people won't open up. Would you agree, Karin, to speak it? I don't want to share my feelings. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I forget what the event was considered, but it was sort of a spiritual thing. And the one lady said to one of the attendees that, I feel like you're going and you're seeing somebody, but you're not opening up. Like, how many of you listening, and you've probably seen this, Karin, I have it with my clients too, where they'll come in and I'll be like, so like you said, how's it going? So I've learned, and what good happened in your week this week? Like, I learned to give them the questions. I can't say good, but so even if you can't afford to pay for somebody, there's other avenues. But if you are paying for somebody, take advantage of it. If you're working with somebody like Karin or myself, or you're seeing a therapist, don't sit in there and hold the feelings back, because we can only work with you so far if you're not willing to be vulnerable and open up. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I actually think that doing gratitude is such an important thing. And you don't have to have any of us with you, although we would love to be with you and support you. And gratitude is something that, again, everything is about empowering women, is what I'm hearing that, Pearl, you do so beautifully, that I love doing. And, to me, it's about the integration, the embodiment. It's like, so at some point you'll need someone to support you, a mentor or someone who guides you. And then you go, got it. I got it. Yes, this is it. I understand. And then you do it. And then there'll be another thing that happens. And then you'll go, you know what, now I need a new guide. And then you get that guide. And that's the journey. That's the evolution of being in this physical form. But what I love is with gratitude is you can say, I'm just grateful that I got up. I'm grateful that I'm breathing. I mean, it can be that simple.
Just take it down, like you said, even that, or even just like somebody was sharing that they were uniquely abled, so not disabled, they're uniquely abled, right? And so, which I love that, again, it's all that thinking, like changing the way we think, right? And so what I loved was that somebody said, before I even like put my feet in, I'm just thankful for the breath, like just be able to wake up and have that breath, right? It's just that little bit of gratitude can make a big difference, and then also trying something different, like, I love affirmations. I love affirmations. And I get up in the morning and I tell myself I'm beautifully and wonderfully made. I deserve everything I'm going to receive, good, bad, or indifferent, because there's a lesson to learn in everything I'm going to receive, right? Because I want to acknowledge I'm not always going to have a perfect day, but it doesn't mean that if I'm having a rough day or something doesn't go my way or somebody upsets me, that I have to have a bad day. It's a choice. It's that mindset, right? So we can flip that mindset, I think it just makes, I know for me, it makes a difference for me, but to watch my clients start to put it to work, to watch my, friends put it in place, and, my kids will laugh and go, oh, there she goes again. She's talking about changing the thought process, Yeah,
well, that's the only thing we can do. So there you go. That's the key. So it's like, if you don't do that, then nothing else is really going to change. I mean, seriously, it's that
you're
basic.
Going to stay this. You stay in the same rut, and everything. So what I would love to know is, what was life growing up for you? Like, let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to when you were a little girl and before you came on this journey of teaching and this wonderful new journey of, empowering others and the journaling and like really getting into ourselves and doing the things that are on our list. Like, what was life for you growing up? Like, what brought you, we know, like from teaching, what led you to that?
Well, what led me to it? I don't really know, in the sense that I know I've always been, I'm an only child. I did a lot of reading on my own. I was by myself quite a bit. I did journaling. My parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. I did a lot of journaling. It kind of saved me. Okay, because my parents were so angry and distracted and hurt with each other that I kind of got lost, right? So that is kind of where I then kind of went within, because there was nowhere else to go, really. And I learned how to process by getting things out onto paper, which was actually kind of an amazing thing. I remember my mother handed me this journal, and thank goodness she did. I was probably 8 or something, 7 maybe, and it had, you know, it was pink and it had a little lock and a key. It was like one of those journals, and I loved it. And it really just, I remember reading things like, you know, trying to process what I was feeling. I would just be pissed off a lot and upset and sad, and I would draw and all those things. My mother was she's not around anymore. She was a therapist. So there was always this kind of connection to kind of the psychology and the psychological understanding. I'm very in my head too. So I really like to understand. And people would often come, you know, my friends, we would talk, they would ask me questions. I would listen. I was a good listener. So that's kind of a natural state of who I am anytime. And I think people just felt comfortable, felt safe. And that just led to, I actually thought I was going to be a botanist, Pearl. Don't ask me how I became a teacher. What I ended up doing is I started teaching science to kids. And then I was like, oh my God, I love kids. What is this? I love this. And that's what took me into the direction of becoming a teacher.
I love that you were going to be a botanist. That's amazing.
And what was so funny is that I got that if I was a botanist, I'd be writing a lot of papers and I'd be by myself a lot. And I was like, you know what? I'm good with myself. It's actually too much. And I actually, at some point, really saw myself as an extrovert, which is so funny. I was an introvert, extrovert, and now I'm like leaning into the introvert more. It's so curious how that can shift.
I think that's really important to understand that we ebb and flow, right? Like we ebb and flow through our life, and we change. You know, those things can change, and and our journey can be different. You know, like now, you know, for me, my world is, you know, it's a world of, you know, a new world of living with grief the rest of my life, right? So it's like it's that kind of world, and you know, like I shared earlier, I still believe, you know, like I said, my son saw. You saw the mom, you saw the glass half full, and I always believe I see it overflowing. And you know, and I don't have perfect days. Like, listen, you know, throw in there the loss of your son. That's definitely not a perfect day, but there's many things in there, and you know, and I make a choice. We have to choose to get up, right? But it's not easy. So there's somebody who's listening that's going, you know, oh yeah, you guys talk great, get in your mind, get your self-care and things like that. But some people are sitting in listening to this and maybe haven't gotten out of bed in 4 or 5 days, right? And they're just sitting with that depression or grief. And so that's why, you know, like we said earlier, it's important to reach out to somebody, even if you just start with a friend, you know. And I think it's too important that if there's somebody that you can think of that you haven't heard from or you haven't checked on in a while, that's always important to go do that check. Because sometimes I think people are afraid to ask for help. Would you agree? Like they're afraid to reach out. They're afraid to say, I need help, or can I talk to somebody, right? I mean, you know, embarrassment, all those things come up in those feelings. And I think it's important for our mental fitness that we find a way to work through those feelings. Because like would you agree to, we judge, like you said earlier, we judge ourselves, we doubt ourselves, the, you know, the brain and emotion, all they play in there, right?
Oh yeah. There's a great book that you might have heard. It's Okay to Not Be Okay. Have you heard of this book? Anyway, it's a great book about, especially if you have gone through the grieving process recently, where, you know, people are surprised they didn't recognize that something would happen to a family or to somebody that they love and dearly, right? So she says, and she's a therapist, that this is really the book for you if you're in that situation, because I really do get that there's a lot of grief books that are out there that I think are great after a couple of years, but not for people who are like in it and don't want to get out of bed and just need to feel whatever, you know, whether they feel numb or whether they feel exhausted or whether they feel like just drained or whatever it is. to allow oneself to feel that so that you then ultimately move through it. And grief is such a individual thing, right, Pearl? Because if you're going through this process, and I actually, it's fascinating that you're talking about, and I'm truly sorry about your son. I really, really am. And I understand that there's so much grief in the planet now. Why? Because since the pandemic, there's something called collective grief that no one is really talking about. And whether we've lost people, or whether we've lost jobs, or whether we've lost just experiences, whatever it is, there's this thing called loss. And that's not been really addressed. I've actually gone through 2 different trainings now. One with, have you heard of Francis Weller? He wrote The Wild Edge of Sorrow. He's one of my heroes. I love his work. He's a therapist in the Bay Area, and he's very poetic and uses archetypal energies and pathways to actually understand how grief can occur. Because we know the one culturally accepted form of grief, which is if someone you love dies. Okay, we all know that one. And then it's kind of accepted that you can fall apart, or you can feel whatever you're going to feel, because it's different for everyone. But some people just kind of move through their day and they just keep going. So it's whatever your experience is. But then there's 4 other ways to actually move into grief. And I have found that his 5 paths, or portals as he calls them, gateways, are really important to recognize. Like, one is the part of yourself that you have denied. There's grief there. And that could be because in the family, like in my family of origin, I needed to, I had to figure out how to get myself taken care of, right? Because I felt slightly abandoned. So in that, not slightly, I felt abandoned. And so in that case, what did I do? Well, I actually did become, I kind of put aside the carefree, like, ooh, fun little kid for a while. And that's the part that I want to bring back. Right. So we all have these parts, or the angry one, or the very loud, rambunctious one, or if somebody said, "Don't ever cry," that part of you is over. Right. So these are different parts of, or ways in which we need to grieve and acknowledge these things.
I love that you're sharing that, because the other part too is, like you said, grief isn't just about the loss of someone. It could be loss of a relationship, a job, like you said, and then the inner child piece of it too. And so we have to walk through, and we have to, allow that grief. And what I'll go back to the loss of my son for a second. What I find interesting, and I've been posting about this, is that, and I think it applies to almost all these areas we're talking about with grief, is that people go, "You should be over by now," right? Nobody said it to me, but I have a friend who she lost her son a year ago, and she posted that somebody's like, "Aren't you over by now?" Or then I start seeing what people are saying. They go to family events and they're like, "Oh, don't talk to her about so and so because she's just going to get upset. She's crazy because she's not over the loss." I'm like, I start thinking, like, okay, listen, we have the loss of a loved one, but we also have all these other losses in our lives, like a family, a relationship. You can't just get over it, No. And we have to recognize that sometimes that grief is going to stay with us.
That's right.
Yes, the loss of a loved one is going to always be with us, right? I know the loss of my son is going to completely be with us. And going to bed at night is just horrible. However, I also know that I have a life. I mean, I haven't, I believe God's got me here for a reason, and he's not going to, he doesn't want me to lay in bed all day. But for that person, like you said, and we've been saying, that is at that point in their lives, having tools or things to help them walk through that. So I guess my point with all that is to not judge somebody when they're in their grief, because you're not in their shoes. I mean, we hear that time, you don't walk in my shoes. And it's very true, though. We're not in that person's shoes. So I just love that we've had this conversation, that, and to, we have to understand and meet people where they're at. How can we help you? I'm here to help you. Are you open to conversation of how you're feeling? Like, ask, don't ignore, don't not call, don't ask, or don't, set them aside, because then trust me, nobody wants to sit in that spot for that long, but sometimes they just don't know where to start. So if you're listening and have somebody, reach out to that person, like I said. offer a helping hand, or if you are that person, find somebody that you can talk to, listen to a podcast, grab a couple of these books we talked about, because it's important to at least start somewhere, even if it's just getting out of the bed and going to the chair in the kitchen, right? You've started. Would you agree?
Right. Oh, yes. And I'm doing a 3-month training as a grief educator now. It's actually been that important because I also lost my sister-in-law this year, and so I also have been doing my own grief work. And so there's find David Kessler is another person that many people have heard of. He wrote his latest book on meaning, making meaning out of all of this, because when his son died 5 years ago, it kind of blew him out of the water. He's the grief expert, and he had never had someone so close. I mean, he had his mother pass away, but then his son, who was at 21. So his book is really powerful. I listened to it, and it was phenomenal. And he does something called Tender Hearts. It's an organization that's online. So if people do have grief and can't get out of bed, literally, Pearl, like you're just saying, you can be in your bed and on the screen and be part of like hundreds of people who are also understanding that, we're in it together. Grief, we're in some form of grief together. It's powerful.
So talk about being in it together. It's a great segue to say, somebody wants to work with you. You're virtually too, right? You do a lot of virtual stuff.
I do most things now virtually. It's just easier because I do this wisdom circle, and I have people from Europe, I have people from Canada, I have people from the United States, and from where I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, all the way to the East Coast. So I'm everywhere. So I do things virtually, and I actually love it. It's I find that it's very connecting for me. So to speak with you, Pearl, I feel very connected to you, and this is an easy thing. I also can do things live, but it's I haven't moved as much into that right now. I do these 2 wisdom circles. They'll be starting up, and these wisdom circles are based on journaling and then sharing deeply what's going on for us and being witnessed, not about giving advice. There is none of that, because how many of us love advice?
No, thank you.
No, exactly. So we just get to be really witnessed, and we get to share and talk through and out, and it's super illuminating, right? So we do journaling in the morning. I have a morning group, and then I do an evening group. And I facilitate that all online. I also do these exercise classes, and that's a whole nother thing, because you were talking about, the mindset. For me, I just turned 60, and I got to tell you, that was like I don't know, for me as a mind bender. And one of the things is that exercise for me has really been big since I turned about 45. Strength training, really working out in a different way than I had before, because I was a runner, and I was doing things outdoors all the time, but it was different. I needed to balance it out with strength training. So I am loving that. And, my mindset is now I can do it.
And so tell everybody where they can find you for some of this you're doing. So talk about I know that we got the KSM app, so if you want to share that, but tell me where they can find you. And where they can find you on social media and such.
Okay, so you can find me on drkarinlubin.com. Okay, and it's all, there's no space between that. So Dr. Karin, KarinLubin.com. Dr. Karin Lubin, and you'll see that I'm kind of, I do different things: journaling, exercise, and I do coaching. I do a lot of training for people as well. So you can just sign up for my newsletter and start to get a feel for who and what I'm all about. I have some free gifts that I'm happy to give in Pearl. If people want to do that, they'll get a Reconnecting to Your Core ebook, which I would love to share with your people. It's just simple. It's like exercises and things to do. And let's see, what else? There's also Instagram. You can find me, again, Karin Lubin, my name. It's very easy. And on Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So those are all, just look up my name, Karin Lubin. The media group is also just a wonderful app that, being free, and that is 10-minute little motivational positive habits that you can create. I think, Pearl, you doing it, I'm doing it, and so many other amazing people are part of this. That I love that. So whether somebody asked me, they can't get it on Android. Yes, you can. You can get it on your Apple phone, so it's all good. But you got to download it onto your phone. That's the key. And if people have any questions, you can just email me at karinlubin@gmail.com. How's that?
That's awesome. And we're going to put all that social media links too. And we post the episode. We'll make sure everybody has that as well. And it's been so much fun. We always run out of time. I just looked up like, oh my gosh, we're almost at an hour. Like, we always run out of time on these episodes. We just have so much fun. So everybody that's listening, normally I have my own deck of cards and I shuffle my cards and ask you. But because I'm at Julie's house and I forgot to bring my cards, Karin actually has her own cards. So she's going to shuffle them. She's going to pull a card and she's going to tell us about the card that she pulls. Okay, so this is the Spirit of the Animal Oracle. So hopefully you can see that, by Jody Bergsma. I love her. And this is a card for what? What am I doing this for, Pearl? It's normally I pull a card and I have you answer the question. So just pull a card for mindset. Mindset. Okay. Okay, this is the ladybug. And it says good luck. So, I love ladybugs. I do too. So this is, you are a bright energy. Let worry go and be happy here and now. Feel good about being a loving and colorful you. You bless the world with color and good luck. So that's a nice mindset to leave with, right? That's a nice mindset to leave with. That kind of feels so appropriate for me with everything, going on in my world right now. So to continue on the journey that I am, seeing everything colorful, and as I do already. So I just love that. So it's so awesome. Well, I've had so much fun with you today. And so before we close, I just want to remind everybody, we'll put all the social links for Karin on there. But I also want to remind everybody that, we have our WS Living retreats. We have 2 spots left, but by the time you hear this, we have already finished the retreat. So if you want to join our pajama retreat for next year in 2023, while you're listening to this, if you reach out to me at wsliving.com, you will be able to grab this year's 2022 price for 2023. And we haven't announced where we're going to be at yet, but we'd love to have you join us. And I just also want to remind you, we always have our Shira League open house. So if you want to join us on a Sunday evening, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, it's a great way to end the week, start your week. It's so much fun. Great community of women that are just uplifting each other and talking about the things we talked about here today. But most of all, I want to remind everybody that we come into this world and we are we're this oyster. We're a little rough on the outside, but I believe that as you open up inside, you have this beautiful pearl inside. Well, my name is Pearl. I believe each and every one of you are a pearl, and I hope you go find your inner pearl of greatness. Have a great day.
Hello, sunshine. Good to see you again.